Take a deep breath. Tune into the beating of your heart. And awaken to a fresh perspective. Welcome to See More with Morcie, your go-to podcast for discovering a centered path for your purpose. And what's up? My name is Morcie, and I help entrepreneurs, creatives, and leaders just like you invite presence into your life. I know what it's like as an entrepreneur, a creative, and a leader to feel like there's always more to do, but never enough to feel complete. There's always more to create. There's always more to manifest, but never enough to feel enough. I find myself intrigued by the way the mind works, and this might be a bit peculiar, but hear me out, right? I've always found myself intrigued by how the mind always wants more. More to attempt to fill the space, to fill a void. And each time the mind reaches that more, it's not enough. It doesn't feel enough. Maybe for a little bit it feels enough, but after that, it's like, oh, it's not enough. On to the next one to see if that one will be enough. And it keeps on going in hopes that the next goal will be enough. It continues to move the goalpost. And so then we end up in this never-ending cycle, trying to achieve more and more and more, only to be left with emptiness. And when I say the mind, I specifically mean the state of consciousness where there is an individual identity of wants, of needs, of being attached to a certain outcome, right? It's a state of consciousness, a level of awareness. And I found throughout my spiritual awakening journey that through deep presence and through tapping in to a boundless awareness, that the source of filling that space, of filling that void is now. It's this very moment. I've shared this story on this podcast a bit ago, but I'll give you a little recap. My intention in this episode is really to share with you. It's really to give you a gentle nudge, a pointer into this moment, not with the mind getting in the way, not with the mind asking, is this enough, or where is it, or is this it, but truly being here. So almost 3 years ago, it was early 2022. I was home with my mom. It was just an ordinary day. We were watching tennis, hanging out. We love tennis. And in that moment, I noticed a shift in awareness. It was like a wave passing over my mind, my thoughts, and everything that come within the mind. It started sinking, like sinking to the bottom of an ocean or something. It was further away, and awareness expanded. And suddenly I was everything. Everything. And the I that I'm saying, it's not the I that's an individual identity. I mean, I was literally everything. I was the tennis player on TV. I was like, that's me. I was my mom's voice yelling. I was the space in the room. It really felt so familiar. It just felt like me. It expanded so much that I felt like I could see around the corner of the open door. My eyes were wide open, right? Wide open. But I saw more than the world. I saw myself. I saw awareness. I saw awareness reflecting back at me. I saw awareness aware of itself. And the moment was so full. It was so full, it was enough. Like, these are the words that I have to express it. This very moment right here is so full that it's enough. I knew I was complete. I knew I was enough. And the knowing didn't come from anywhere tangible. It was just what is. It was just, that's what it is. I had this deep knowing that everything would be okay and everything is as it should be. And I rested in this space for a little, all I could really do was giggle and smile as a little bit, like just a tiny bit, because once again, the moment was so full, like there was no point in intellectualizing it in the moment. There's no point in even telling my mom. I mean, I just feel like there's just no point. There was no point. And I rested in that space for a bit. I don't know how long really, but eventually the mind, it came back up. And it was more apparent, that individual identity was more apparent. But there was still a little bit of that, I like to call it non-duality, right? It was still there. It was still that ability, I guess the word is ability, to see oneness and see with the third eye, not necessarily with this. Even though I was seeing with this, it was also this. I took some time, after that moment to kind of explore that because it was familiar in a way, Before that moment of boundless awareness, I had already been sharing YouTube videos and TikToks and Instagram posts on present moment awareness. So there was already a familiarity there. I was already drawn to it. I don't know why specifically it happened in that moment, right? I can't tell you. No plant medicine, nothing. There's nothing within my body to tamper with my state of consciousness. It was a wave that came over naturally. And so after that, I started to see the world differently in many ways. I listened to many spiritual teachers, just like I'm sure you have. But what they shared, it was deeper. It was far beyond intellect. And it's not to say that before it wasn't intellect, but it was such a deep awareness. It's like, it was no longer vague metaphors. It was like, I get you. And on a deeper level, that's beyond intellect, beyond understanding, and beyond the mind. Knowing that, words really, they don't really describe it. It more works around it because that's just how it is. And so in that moment, I truly noticed how the mind is always seeking for more. But remember, the mind sinks and awareness expands. And so if the mind sinks, the mind can't truly know what it means to fill that space in that void, right? Our mind is important. The individual identity is important here in the physical world, right? If you're an entrepreneur, a creative, or a leader, you're looking for financial freedom. You're looking for financial abundance to ensure your comfort and safety in this world. You're looking to learn new skills and build a business. All of that is very necessary from the mind, right? The drive to do more, to achieve more. It's fun, to be honest. But when you're only aware of that state of consciousness, of that level of awareness, you get trapped in a cycle trying to fill that void, right? Because your spiritual fulfillment in that way, it can't be fulfilled through those physical things. The spiritual fulfillment comes from awareness of this moment, the depth of this moment, the power of this moment, the expansiveness of this moment. I mean, I can keep going on. The wholeness, the completeness, here now, not over there, not all the way in some other country. It's here. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what you have. For me, if one were to say there were an ultimate truth in the world, right? it's available to any and everyone. Any and everyone. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to ask someone for permission. You don't have to pass a certain class. It's available to any and everyone. The ultimate truth, available to all. And that is what I tapped into. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you believe. This is beyond belief. This is not an understanding, an intellect, a belief. It's not an opinion or a judgment. It's a level of awareness, and I'm just expressing it. I'm just sharing it. And this is the same thing that I heard before from so many other spiritual teachers. And in the past, I mean, this is ancient, but it's a part of our existence here. Non-duality. You're probably here, you're listening because you felt some sort of deep peace once before, deep peace, deep presence, right? You may have even had this shift in awareness just like myself. And you find yourself drawn to this. You're finding yourself drawn to this for a reason. It's because there's something calling you. That's something to remind you that you don't have to keep trying to find fulfillment in all that you create, in all that you build and manifest. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to prove anything. You don't have to protect an identity or protect who you are. Because fulfillment is here now. And when you're recognizing that, when you're tapping into the present moment in your work, you find that you're flowing. And when I say flow, there's this effortless action where the mind isn't constantly feeding doubt, but it's actually working for you. It's working in servitude for you rather than against you, right? Using thoughts instead of thoughts using you, right? That takes a level of awareness, a level of patience, and also, in many ways, a level of awareness that your truest identity doesn't lie in the individual. And the reason that sounds scary, if this is your first time hearing it or if you heard it before and it scares you, it's not really you that it's scaring, it's the mind, right? Once again, it's a state of consciousness that's an individual, right? It's scaring the mind because it's like, oh, is this the end of me? It's the end of me, and it's not, right? Like what's coming to mind is, death when we pass. We're not actually dying. We're just transferring. The energy is transferring, right? Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So the mind, in a way, says, oh, I'm going to be destroyed, right? And that's when, that comes in. Another way to say the mind could be ego too. But I want to use the mind, And I notice specifically, I say the mind so that it's not taken personally. Because it's easy to say you, but then it gets taken personally. When we say the mind, it's easier for observation, right? This is a pointer to presence. It's so that we're not taking it personal, and we can really step back, right? And I know you might have listened to this and said, okay, I want that awareness. I want that boundless awareness, And I understand that happened to me too. So after that moment, I started noticing the mind reaching for that. Oh, I want that again. I want that feeling of everything being okay and everything as it should be and feeling complete. Like even after that, the mind was like, I want it. But there was a deeper part of me that was just like, that's not how it works. And there was still space. There was space to observe and say, this is the mind reaching for something that really it will never understand. And that's okay. It will never fully understand or grasp. And this is why many people who their first time tuning into this, especially those who come in quite skeptical, they'll be like, this is BS, right? I mean, I've gotten quite a few of those comments on my podcast episodes, and it's because to the mind, it doesn't make sense. It's not being observed from a vantage point that is beyond the mind, because the mind doesn't even believe there's anything more than the mind. It doesn't know until in some way, right? Once again, you have that awareness, or you just naturally feel drawn to it, because that's what happened to me. I naturally felt drawn to this, just like you. So what I want to share here is that, presence isn't limited to this boundless awareness that I'm sharing with you. It's just, I wanted to express the depth of the present moment, because sometimes the mind will get in the way and ask, is this enough? Is this it? Or, oh no, it needs to be more boundless. It needs to be more blissful. And so that's when the mind gets in the way of the being present, because it's expecting more. But remember, those thoughts inside of the head, those expectations could never really understand that. That's why tapping in and tuning into presence means being here. Becoming aware of the gaps of space between thoughts. The space that holds all thoughts, all emotion, all events. It holds it, but it never gets involved in any of it. It doesn't get involved in the drama. It just holds it all. It's aware of it all. In this space, it's a presence that is untouched. A presence that is unmoved. It's always here. And so whether it's in work or in your relationships or within creativity, you'll find that pointer towards presence, coming into this moment, into the depth of this moment, and just being, just observing the thoughts, observing emotions, observing expectations, it's enough. You don't need what I just shared. If it's something, a wave that comes over you, that's it. That's your experience. But to constantly expect it to be so grand, that's what gets in the way of the practice. And this is very common within spiritual practices, is to try to meditate to be enlightened. But once again, that's an identity of the mind. That's the mind thinking that you have to work and achieve enlightenment. You don't need to. It's more of a resting. It's more of a surrender and a relaxing. You don't need to achieve rest. You don't need to achieve relaxing. It's really just a surrender. And once you kind of allow yourself fully, you'll start to see the world differently. You start to see it in a wholeness and completeness in whatever way, whatever channel is meant for you to see it. Once again, I was already sharing present moment awareness before that experience. And I find that what I had experienced was enough for me to share, right? You don't need to, once again, I emphasize this because I know how the mind can be. And that's why I'm continuously sharing this, because the whole intention of this message is that there's seems to be always more to do, but never enough to feel complete. And so I emphasize that you don't need it, so that you can rest in the moment. You can be relaxed in the moment. You can let go of the story of what the mind told you about of enlightenment. You are already enlightened. I am. That is it. You don't have to say I am enlightened. You can say I am. And that is enough. And continue each day to tap into presence, right? There will always be highs and lows in life within the physical world. There will always be highs and lows. There will always be more to do, more to create, more to manifest. It's the nature of reality, of living in this physical world. It's the beauty of it. Creation. It's beautiful being here. And so if ever you find yourself in that unconsciousness, you are already aware of the depth and the level of presence. Just tune in and remember who you are. I encourage you to subscribe to my newsletter, The Enlightened Entrepreneur, if you're looking for more pointers towards the present moment on your journey as a creative and a leader and entrepreneur. All of these moments inspired this, and I know there's so many more people just like me that are looking for a space to be present on this journey, because there are so many highs and lows, and it's easy to get stuck in our head. It's easy to feel like we're never enough or complete. But when we tap into that, we tap into universal consciousness, we tap into universal intelligence. We are being led by presence. And that right there is a life of true fulfillment. The awareness of physical abundance and spiritual abundance, that is completeness. Life doesn't need to be perfect, but once you step out of the mind and you recognize yourself beyond individual identity, you recognize, life is perfect as it is, no matter the way the mind judges it. My name is Morcie. I'm sending you peace, love, wholeness. Subscribe to The Enlightened Entrepreneur. Until next time.